Hello, everybody. This is Chuck Wiger. I'm at the state capitol. And as you know, my number one priority are students, teachers, parents working to help have us the best workforce in the world. That is our priority as a state, the world's best workforce. And we invest a significant amount into that in our state budget. We're working on the state budget, and I'm really pleased that visiting me today are two of the Minnesota Teachers of the Year. And from Maplewood have Amy Hewett-Olatunde, and you were the 2015 Minnesota Teacher of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We'll talk more. And then from Winona, Katy Smith. And you were the 2011 Minnesota Teacher of the Year.
It's true.
So the most prestigious award, which I know you accept on behalf of teachers, but it's a great accomplishment. So we appreciate that, and I know you've been all over the United States and sharing, and it's very helpful, I think, for myself and viewers, just to share your thoughts on where education's at, some of the key issues. And we have just several minutes now, and this could be an ongoing program, I know. But
Sure.
who'd like to start, just to share what you wanted to share with me today, and
Sure.
our viewers as well?
I could start. My name is Katy Smith. I teach parent education at Early Childhood Family Ed in Winona, Minnesota. ECFE is 42 years old in the state, and our hopes and dreams are to help parents prepare their kids for their learning journey.
And I want to say
yes.
that about 40 some years ago, I was an intern here at this. Well, we're in the Senate office building, but at the state capitol, I was an intern for Jerry Hughes.
Yeah.
He was the president of the Senate. He was the chair of the Education Committee. I was 20 years old, and I had an assignment to work on community ed and then some early childhood family education thoughts he had, and that was where some of the early thoughts were put together for community ed, and the whole idea of lifelong learning opportunities, emphasizing the importance of the early education, a great start working with the families, and that's what you do. You're a parent educator, and so the visions back then are reflected in what you're doing, and I know how important it is. So I'm just really pleased because it's very personal in terms of a project that I had worked on once and then actually campaigned on, and then to see one who's become so successful in doing that. So tell us more about that.
So you are welcome to join me any day and see what that looks like, that vision and that dream that legislators had for more than 40 years ago, to what would it look like to support folks from birth all the way through death, really. And so you can join me. We would do home visits. We'd meet newborns and their parents in their home and make sure that they're well connected with each other and well connected in a community. And I love the idea of Minnesota Public Schools going into homes and letting folks know that from the day their babies are born, Minnesota schools are ready to support them. It's jaw-dropping, right?
It is. It's astonishing.
The satisfaction in being able to help people, and this is all done on a voluntary basis, of course, when we go out, but it's to show people that there's resources available.
Right. And then the great thing that happens, a good day at work for me, is doing one of those baby connections and then seeing that family later in the week at school because they've connected with their early childhood family ed program, and they're building their own parenting community and building social capital that's so important for parents to navigate schools, whether that's universal pre-K or voluntary pre-K or scholarships, but wondering what does a pre-K landscape look like, and Minnesota is kind of forging that and doing its best to support young learners so that when families, not just when kindergartners get to kindergarten, but when families get there, they feel like they belong. They understand what it is. They understand the important role that they play in supporting their young learners, not just to kindergarten, but all the way through. The research is compelling about ECFE. Folks who stay engaged early stay engaged all the way through the trajectory of their child's school career. And so all those years ago, when it was just a dream and you were putting it together, now is a sound program that has research that supports that Minnesota makes really wonderful gains in the achievement and an opportunity gap when we support whole families. So thank you.
You're welcome. And Amy, tell us about your passion for education.
Sure. So I work in St. Paul, just down the road at a school called Leap High School, and it caters to immigrants and refugees. We're very lucky that way. And it's a public school. And so right now, just protecting public ed and making sure that kids get the most accessible and equitable education, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what they're bringing with them into the classroom. And so I'm working at a high school with students that are coming from a variety of backgrounds, mostly from refugee camps, from over 30 to 40 different countries, speaking multiple languages, different religions, and they're all bringing in.
What a diverse.
Oh, it's incredible.
group.
And you
How
know,
many languages at the
I would say
school?
probably anywhere between 25 and 35
Yes.
on average. And our students come from backgrounds in which sometimes they were not afforded the opportunity to go to school.
Yes.
And when they come to the United States, they are so eager to learn, and they take every single day as an opportunity to not only learn English, but also to learn how to navigate the system, to help their parents become successful in the country. And they are students that most often don't want vacations, don't want weekends. They
No.
want to be in school. And they have so much respect for their teachers, so much respect for the opportunities that they've been afforded by
Yeah.
coming to the United States. And if you ever got the chance to come to our school and you don't have any relationships with refugees or immigrants, you would walk away saying, these people are some of the greatest people that I've ever met, because they are so respectful and they are just by nature so genuine.
Yeah.
And they look at these opportunities as things that they have not been given freely, that they want to eventually give back. And so with my students, I have been lucky enough to go and advocate around the country and speak on behalf of them and bring their stories with me to talk about why we need diversity in our classrooms and why we need to have different types of learners in order to be better teachers, essentially.
Good.
So
How is it working out? And you're a parent educator
I
as
am.
well in that, and is your work involved directly with parents as well in this, or how do you tie that together?
Well, so I kind of look at, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum that Katie's doing. And so she's starting with the beginning of life, and I'm looking at pre-graduation from high school to get
Okay.
into the next step.
Yep.
And so how do we get more parents who are coming from these backgrounds who don't speak English more involved so that they can navigate the system?
Yeah.
They understand what resources are available, but they also understand what their rights are as parents
Yes.
and their rights that their children have in terms of education. And so we are trying to advocate and speak up for our parents because they most often don't have the language skills to do so.
Yep.
And working with high school students, they are usually the interpreters for their family. And so if we can teach our students to advocate, then that kind of bleeds out into their families, into their communities, and then into greater society.
So if you were to walk into Amy's classroom and mine, you might think that the roles are really different, the classrooms are really different, but we do share a common thread of engaging not just students but whole families into the process of public education, because it's the home of democracy in Minnesota and in our nation, and where everyone is welcome and everyone is a worthy participant and has equal rights and equal responsibilities for their kids' education. So we connect in ways that might not seem obvious, besides connecting with what's best for our students, but knowing that it's whole families. You don't just teach a child anymore, you teach a whole family.
Do you find good support in the community as well, beyond the actual, school district, which is a significant resource in itself, but in terms of other components of the community, how much interaction is there?
I do. One of my responsibilities is to teach parent education for folks who maybe are not able to come to my classes. So through home visits or classes in businesses or a partnership with a leadership class at our Chamber of Commerce with young professionals to try to engage in our common mission of supporting parents. And so
So
I
the
live
Chamber
in
of
a-
Commerce is working
Well,
with you?
we do.
Or
So
you
they
reach
have
out?
a young professionals
Yes.
group that gets
Yeah,
together,
several of
and
them do that.
right, and I've done a parenting class for them.
Yep.
And so understanding that supporting parents at workplace, whether you're a stay-at-home parent
Yep.
or a working parent, is a really good investment that Minnesotans make. When parents are not worried about where their kids are,
Yep.
feel like their kids are in good hands and that they have an easy access to teachers and to schools, the workforce works better. And so taking care of parents is one of the ways I think that we support workforce development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, yeah. It all eventually ties into
really
the
does.
workforce, and that is
And
our
community.
goal.
Do you know what I mean? I
Yes.
mean, it's the community part in the community education
Yeah.
that we all are invested in how well kids are doing. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Amy, with the students that you're working with, how would you characterize their outlook right now? Is there an optimism, a hope, or how are you dealing with the challenging times that
Sure.
we're facing?
So in this political climate, honestly, it's been difficult. It's been difficult since the election results, and the fear in the classroom among students of not knowing what's going to happen and if what has been stated will actually happen. And so we do have students that find school to be a sanctuary.
You mean a fear of deportation?
A fear, yes, a very real fear of deportation, but also
I know
just
that's in my
a
area
fear.
too.
Yes, just a fear of how they're being viewed.
Yeah.
That they're really just being viewed as refugees or terrorists or aliens when they have names and they have stories. And one thing that we're doing to kind of resist that in a way is on June 3rd, there's going to be an organization called Green Card Voices that is homegrown in Minnesota that approached me last August to be part of their fourth book. So they started in Minneapolis, went to Fargo, went to St. Cloud, and Leap High School is the next book that's coming out with 30 of my writers, and where they tell the stories of themselves. And it is the first organization to come out with books that are stories of immigrants written by immigrants, not about immigrants. And so that's one way for those student voices to get out, where as a teacher I can speak forever about what we need for these kids, but when you hear their own voices, it's very hard to not be touched by their stories and realize that they're not here to do anything detrimental to our society, that they are bringing nothing but assets, but gifts into our community. So we're doing things to advocate, both in the classroom, in the community, in my graduate and undergraduate classes. We're trying to get out into the community and speak up.
Yeah, that reaching out into the community, that engagement is so important.
Yeah.
And I was involved in a couple of meetings, and most recently in Oakdale, the police department had a number of people, the chief and others, and the school district, but just reaching out to a lot of the immigrants, and that sense of fear that was there, and trying to allay that and to say, we're in this together, and I found that to be really helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess my one piece of advice would be is that they know their teachers love them. They feel safe with their teachers, but they don't necessarily know that people in the community love them. And so right after the election results, there were a couple community members around the school where I work at who sent letters to the school, and I read them to each of my classes. And those were so touching because they finally realized that everyone wasn't against them. And so for people in the community to not view them as so different, but that, if you would meet someone in the community, another father, another community member, another person that has dreams, has goals for their own family, there's connections that you can make. And not to view as this language as this obstacle, but of ways to get to know about someone different, but find the connections between the two of you. And I think that if people stop looking at people that look or sound or practice their beliefs differently, we might find a lot more commonality and wonderful things about these people that deserve to be living in our community because they are part of our community.
And they're a part, and the whole demographics is changing, as we'll learn in the
And
new
it will
census.
continue to change. It will continue.
And so, and if we don't address this proactively, what's going to happen?
Right. So in my classroom, our commonality is parenting. And so we have lots of folks from lots of different places, lots of different social economic status that come together because what we have in common is parenting. And I think when we focus on what we have in common, we get a lot of work done, and a lot of community building happens when we focus more on what we have in common than in what ways we're different. And so I have people every day that I think about. If you all met in the mall, or if you all met at anywhere
Over coffee
else,
or something.
right, or in a